Well, welcome to the DevOps Online Summit coaching session. This is week 6, our final week. So we had with us Gautham Pallapa. Gautham, why don't you introduce yourself to the people here and the people that are probably watching here later as well.
Thanks, Tom. Thanks for having me. I'm Gautham Pallapa. I'm an executive advisor at VMware. I focus on business transformations with executives and for enterprises, especially in Global 2000s and Fortune 500s. My specialty is culture, organizational transformation, process transformation, and people. And I love working with enterprises with lots of brownfield technology and process overheads, because there is so much of an opportunity to improve and remove that manual toil. My motto is transform with empathy, and so everything that I do, I focus with empathy and try to help them transform. So that's a little bit about me.
Awesome. That's great. I like the transform with empathy, because I'll be honest, I'll confess of being the person that was trying to tell people what to do at times in my career and making lots of mistakes and not having any empathy. And I think that's so important, Gautham.
It is.
So Fee, do you have any questions, Fee, or we can, there's a few things we can talk about, but let Fee.
No, I don't have any question.
Okay.
Yeah, we can go on. Yep.
So now Emmanuel's joining us as well. So good to see him. So talk a little bit about those opportunities, Gautham, that where, with organizations, sometimes there's a lot of opportunity out there to look for things, isn't there?
Oh, there definitely are. So, and this is inevitable. Every organization would have started as a startup somewhere. And being a startup, the entire goal is to try to get to the market quicker, try to establish their value, get a revenue stream going, and start growing, right? And as a result of that, you don't really think about processes, you don't really think about governance, or you don't think about a lot of the things that enterprises look for, because you don't have those additional baggages or overhead. You just want to get to the market. You want to just do it. But as things build up with time and as organizations grow, you start incurring a lot of technical debt, a lot of operational debt, and a lot of process debt. And if it's not managed appropriately, it starts becoming overwhelming. And that's where a lot of enterprises start seeing themselves. They want to embrace lean, they want to embrace agility, and they want to embrace DevOps. But the existing processes, which would have become extremely bureaucratic at that point of time, or rule-oriented, prevent them from actually doing a good job about it. And so that causes friction. People start getting frustrated. And it just slows things down, and so that's why I feel there's a huge opportunity in enterprises or in mid-tier organizations which have all these debts, to look at ways to rethink and reimagine how you actually do things, try to bring in that automation and remove that manual toil that everyone's facing, and then really question, should this process really require this much of an overhead? Some examples are like change advisory boards or CABs, right? That's one of the most fundamental areas that one can start. Having people put their name and stake their reputation on a deployment is probably a wrong thing. And we all know how it came about. It is because something bad happened in production at some point of time, and the mandate came from above that there needs to be one throat to choke. Someone needs to be accountable, and that's how these kinds of operations start manifesting. So, questioning those, trying to figure out, do we really need those things? That's where all the opportunities are, in my mind.
Yeah. Yeah, those famous anti-patterns like a cab, or I've seen a few of those in my day. So, but I just want to stop and invite Fee or Manuele if you have questions for Gautham.
So I'm kind of in line with what you just say, Gautam, because my organization is starting as a startup, right?
Okay.
And so we got all thing that on our hands we can, decide it on, right? So at some point, we got acquired by a bigger company, right?
Okay.
Now we have to falling into, the corporate process. How do I, convince, a company, a corporate that been around for like over 200 years, that their process is having a lot of overheading versus the startup like my organization, right? So that's a constant struggle that I'm running with, right? So I'm still have to be playing by the corporate rule,
Yep.
but we all know that it's a lot of overheading and slowing us down. So
Totally. And that's a great question, Fee. And it's not uncommon to see this with a lot of companies, right? Especially with the acqui-hiring concept that enterprises have. They just want to acqui-hire a company and assume that not just the IP and the patents come along with it and the tech, but also the people will automatically become enterprise level stewards. And it is really challenging because it is a different gear at which enterprises work. They are slower just because they're enterprises, but it's not that it's a bad thing. It's just they have additional problems or additional things that interface with the technology that bring in that friction to prevent and cause that inertia of progress. The thing that has worked and the thing that I tell a lot of startups, especially that have been recently acquired, is acknowledge that you are now part of an enterprise. It's a good thing and a bad thing. The good thing is you have a lot of support, air cover, you have protection, you have money coming in, you have a lot of revenue to support your dream and your aspiration. That is a great thing. What one needs to be concerned about is to embrace the fact that things are going to slow down. On an average, I want to say each process, be it even the path to production or software, I would venture to say that they would reduce about 20 to 35% out of the gate when you start integrating. And that's okay. Because right now, what you are doing is you're taking that time to understand how the enterprise mechanism works, how the process works. You're trying to identify all the ancillary components and the backing services that you have to now integrate with at an enterprise level, and trying to, every time you have friction, and this is something I encourage people to do, have an improvement list. Make a list of all the places where you're having friction. And then what I would suggest is do impact effort analysis on these processes and find out which of these processes are going to have the maximum impact with the least amount of effort. Identify one that requires a lot of challenge. So it has high impact, but it requires a lot of effort. And then one that is low-hanging fruit, two that are low-hanging fruit. That is two processes that have huge impact but low effort. Start working on those.
yep.
And pace yourself and time yourself. Every 90 days, revisit your impact effort matrix and figure out how much of progress you made. Make sure that you have metrics in everything that you're improving, because if you don't measure it, it's not real. So measure the amount of value that you're bringing to the organization, how much time that you saved, how much money that was reduced, how quickly we went to the market, how many incidents or bugs, for example, we reduced because of improving the process with that. And build that as a story that you can tell on a regular cadence to the executives, and they will start championing you to improve it.
Yep.
You could
Is
also,
there any,
okay, go ahead.
yeah. So you're talking about metrics. So is there any tool, any suggestion on how to go about to gather those metrics?
The first thing is hypothesis-based approach. Experimentation is the best way. When you are trying to improve your process, build your hypothesis appropriately. right? You are going to say that if you're going to do something and you believe your hypothesis will work, how will you measure it? How will you justify that it is successful? That is going to be your first metric, or the metrics that you're going to focus on for your process. So hypothesis-based experimentation is really beneficial there. And then you have two kinds of metrics that you want to look at, right? The first one is the operational metrics. Those are the regular metrics that you can get by improving a process, the touch time, the takt time, the cycle time, the wait time, and all that. Those are easy to calculate. Or if you were doing it from an incident perspective, the number of times you're touching it, the amount of code coverage, all those various metrics that you can bring in from an operational perspective. But the other thing that you want to have are business metrics or business KPIs. So what exactly is this process driving? What value is it bringing? How does it relate to the strategic goals or the corporate goals that have been set for your department or your organization? How do they tie to that? Those business KPIs are also important. So having those two will bring that in. Tools, from an operational perspective, you have a ton of tools that you can use, right? They're all baked in. But from a business perspective, I would keep it simple and just keep it like a scorecard or a single PowerPoint deck that you can update every now and then with the information that you're gathering, and just do it as a readout or an infographic to your executives. Just keep it simple.
Okay, got it. Thanks.
Yeah.
Manuele, do you have any questions for Gautham?
Well, I do, but I was actually intrigued by the response that you gave Fee here. But Gautham, my ask is, when you are working with a client and the client is interested in doing a complete migration, cloud migration, however, there exists a number of legacy applications that you feel migrating to the cloud will not be the best approach, but the client's interest is being able to maybe, if it's, I'm not sure why the client would like to do that, but maybe is it just maybe for lack of a better word, the client wants to do that. Let's just say he is insistent that that's what he wants to do, but you don't feel it's the best approach. How would you go about handling such situation, and what would you recommend?
So let me read that back to you. The question that you're asking is, there is a client that naively thinks that everything has to go into the cloud, and they feel that cloud is the silver bullet or the solution to all their problems.
There we go.
But you believe, or you know with empirical proof, that that is not the case, that there are certain applications that cannot be containerized or cannot be moved to the cloud, and you probably are better off either retiring them or keeping them as is. Is that accurate?
Correct. Okay. Exactly.
And that's another great anti-pattern that a lot of people have, especially enterprises, naive enterprises or enterprises with a lot of technical debt. They feel that, just because they bought public IaaS or they're moving to the cloud, the pain and the problem automatically goes away. But that's not really true. There are five, or at least we at VMware, we believe there are five patterns of cloud native development or cloud native modernization. The first one is to rehost, which is your migration, right? Which is your lift and shift, traditional one. You have some kind of an application, you feel that you can lift and shift it and move it into the cloud. And this is usually a pattern that people will use if they want to get out of a data center quickly, or if the lease is coming up, right? You want to reduce your data center footprint. So that's your first one. The next one is re-platform. So re-platform is applications where you want to get off of a painful thing like Docker Swarm, for example, and you want to go into something much more sophisticated like Kubernetes or so on. So you want to containerize it and move it. So that's re-platform. The third one is retiring. You want to seriously ask, maybe you have a SaaS app which provides the same features. So you can retire the existing monolith and just ask them to move to SaaS. And it's still cloud because you can run SaaS in the cloud, right? The next one is refactoring. So it can be either partial refactoring or full refactoring, right? So that's the rewriting of your applications, either small features of it or the large ones of them. And then the last one that, Manuel, you're talking about are those retain that you just have to keep them. Like there are big appliances like maybe IBM Data Power or their mainframes and so on. So you just don't want to touch the code. So these are the 5 R's. Educating your customer about them. And this is something we at VMware do a lot. We talk to them and tell them that all apps are not created equal. And we have what we call as a portfolio navigator, which goes and assesses every single application that is present on the platform, on the premise of the customer, and then provide a cloud suitability score to them and provide recommendations on which of the 5 R's it has to go to. And if the client is still vehement and says, no, I want everything to go to the cloud, say, okay, good, I understand that. Let's sequence the applications properly. So let's take the much more cloud native ones or the features that actually have to be scalable and resilient into the cloud first. Then let's look at the ones that can be replatformed and move them in. So refactoring first, replatforming later, rehost if possible. So you have VM workloads and you just want to move them, so you can do that. Retiring is the next one, so you do it in that sequence. And then finally, when you have retain, look at ways that you can actually strangle that monolith. Are there ways to decompose and bring in that cloud native ability so that it can scale? So the number of workers to access maybe a mainframe is going to increase, and that can stay in the cloud. But they can always talk to something on-prem, right? And that way you can start giving them the benefit of moving to the cloud and providing that bursty traffic and resiliency and scalability, which is truly what the customer wants. And then tell them, you still are stuck with the mainframe unless you decide to get off of it and move into a different technology. And that reduces the focus of and the mindset of everyone saying, oh, everything has to go to the cloud, but instead saying, okay, this is the sequence in which they will go to the cloud. And after that, let's look at it. 80% of the problems usually go away with the first 4 R's.
Gotcha. Very well. Thank you.
Yep. It is a hard problem. I'm very passionate about this because I've driven a lot of business transformations. In the past, I used to run engineering and operations for a very large global organization, and we were going through the same thing. And I faced similar predicaments where everyone thought that just because we brought in IaaS or we decided that we'd go cloud native, that automatically all data centers could turn off and they never had to, have that footprint on-prem. It takes a lot of persuasion and a lot of effort to convince them of this, but 80% of the problem is what you want to target on first. And so sequencing is really, really beneficial.
Excellent.
So Gautham, that's really good. Those 5 steps or 5 options. I guess the only thing I would say is that, you've got all those R words and you have lift and shift. You're missing like the 5 R's of transformations or something, or transforming to the cloud. If you had one more.
No, so for us, the lift and shift, we call it as rehost.
Ah, see, there you go. See, there was a marketer there somewhere at VMware.
It's rehost, replatform, retire, refactor, and retain.
Awesome. Sorry, I missed that then. That's good though. That's good. Just the marketing, you hear sometimes that those mnemonics are so helpful for us.
Oh, they are. Trust me. It's a complex landscape we're in, right? Anyone who goes to cncf.io and looks at the landscape, it's mind-boggling, especially for people who are new CIOs and CTOs or people who are entrusted with the transformation. There are so many projects, and each one of them are good in their own right. You need to find something that actually simplifies things and provides a battle-hardened solution for all of these. So, I do not envy people who want to do a technology transformation right now.
Yeah.
And what's the website again? cncio.io?
CNCF.io, yeah, it's the Cloud Native Computing Foundation.
Mhm. Yeah, there's lots of good projects there. I know I was talking with Tracy Reagan, who runs, well, or I don't know if she runs, but she's very heavily involved in the Ortelius project. And she mentioned this very thing that you mentioned, Gautham, that if you go there, there's so many there, it's hard for, people to keep track of. And it reminds me, and I'm an older developer, so I just remember when the Jakarta project started in Apache, and there was all the projects there, trying to keep track of those and all the open source tools that when I started my career, but it's, it has grown more, I think, than less.
Oh, I just pulled up a slide. I will show you a picture of it if you guys don't mind. Oh, could you enable screen sharing?
Yep. Sorry about that.
Okay.
Just a second here.
I just want to show it to you, and you can go there and you can check it. And I guarantee you that this screenshot that I've taken is a little dated. So you might actually see more projects. But this is CNCF, and each single block out there is a project that will help you with your transformation. Wow. And it's hard. You want to find battle-hardened solutions that actually string a lot of these together. I mean, a lot of them, Kubernetes, as you can see, is just one small, tiny box. You have so much of scaffolding around it that a lot of people just trivialize, and they don't realize that you have to do way more than just Kubernetes. Kubernetes is by itself, it's just an orchestration layer and a management plane. That's all it is. So I just wanted to share that with you all.
That opens your eyes.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Well, Gautham, I really appreciate you joining us and sharing a little extra time with us today. Thank you so much for doing that. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. And thanks for having me. And always love these conversations. I'm very passionate about this. I really believe in business transformation. I write about it. And you and I have chatted a lot about it as well. So thank you for having me on. And feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions. More than happy to help.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.